Welcome to Build Your Agency 2.0 training. I'm Laura Humphreys. A number of years ago, my own agency was stuck around the $1 million mark. 4 years later, we'd grown to more than 10 million and sold to Ogilvy. And the reason I'm sharing this with you now is that I think agency owners are facing a much bigger challenge than simply how to grow these days. The market is changing fast. AI is changing what clients value. Growth feels harder. And if you're the person carrying the responsibility for figuring out what your agency needs to become next, it can feel pretty lonely, right? So if you're running an agency or a consultancy and you're feeling stuck, under pressure, or simply uncertain about what the successful agency of the future is going to look like, stay with me to the end. I'm going to show you why the agency that got you here may not be the agency that gets you where you want to go next, and how to start designing the one that will. So the question every agency owner I know is asking is this: what will the successful agency look like in the future? Because for the first time in a long time, I don't think anyone really knows exactly what the agency 5 years from now is going to look like. I mean, AI is changing what clients can do for themselves, right? What they value, what they'll pay for, and what they expect from us. But I think there are some things we can already see very clearly. Think about your own agency. There are really three possible futures from here, and I want you to think about how it would actually feel with any of these scenarios. So, firstly, you can do nothing. That's the yellow line, right? You can do nothing, change nothing, and 5 years from now, you're probably still busy, tired, and stuck roughly where you are today. Or worst case, the market moves faster than you do and things actually get worse. That's the red line. Your agency loses relevance, loses value, and maybe you have to close the doors and walk away. Or you can make the changes now and build an agency 2.0 that is valuable, scalable, and gives you options and freedom. Think about it for a second. Which of those three futures are you currently heading towards? Because if nothing changes in the way you're running your agency, nothing changes, right? And in this market, standing still may actually mean going backwards. My fundamental belief is very simple. Agency 1.0 got you here. It's the combination of everything you've done to date. And you've done a great job. But inevitably, growth stalls for every business. And you realize that Agency 1.0 is unlikely to get you where you want to go next. Agency 2.0 is the version you need to design for the future. And you can usually feel the difference. Agency 1.0 feels hard. Too much still depends on you. Growth feels harder than it should. The systems never quite get finished. And if nothing changes, it has no future value. Agency 2.0 feels very different. You're leading rather than doing, and the team manages more without you. Growth accelerates, and you're building something that has got genuine value. Most agencies weren't actually designed, and this is true, right? That they kind of built, like a client came along and you hired somebody, then you added a service, you fixed a problem, you added another system, you hired another person, and after 10 or 15 years, you've got the equivalent of a house with extensions stuck all over it. It functions, but if you were designing it today, you probably wouldn't design it quite like that. And the business model is changing too. So Agency 1.0 was built around services, people, hours, referrals, general capability. Agency 2.0 is increasingly going to be built around expertise, intellectual property, systems, strategic value, and leadership. So AI isn't going to make expertise irrelevant. I think it's actually going to make distinctive expertise more valuable than ever. I see my job now is to simply help you see the bridge between the agency you've built and the agency you now need to design. But first, a little story. This was my first agency, Red Rocks. This was about 4 years in. We had clients. We had a young team because that was all I could afford up until this point, and we had loads of ambition. But we'd stalled around the $1 million mark, and I had become the bottleneck. I was involved in everything. Because frankly, I didn't trust anyone to do it as well as I could. I don't know if you relate to that at all. It actually got so bad that I started having panic attacks, and I knew that something had to change, but I genuinely didn't know what to fix first. So I brought in an experienced ex-agency CEO called Don. Yeah, not Don Draper of Mad Men. I just put that picture in there because I thought it was funny. But Don, I hired Don for 2 weeks. He was really expensive. I hired him for 2 weeks. We locked ourselves in the boardroom. We pulled the business apart and redesigned it around what I wanted it to become. What Don helped me see was that the agency wasn't broken. We didn't have 50 different problems to solve. Fundamentally, we had three. Firstly, we had a positioning issue. Our positioning had got us as far as we were, but it wasn't going to get us where I wanted to go next. And we had no predictable systems for winning and growing the right clients. And the agency was still too dependent on me. And I've seen subsequently these same three problems in different forms in virtually every agency that I've worked with. So that's what Don and I redesigned. We didn't throw out everything that I'd built. We took what was already brilliant about the agency, we sharpened it and redesigned everything else around where we wanted to go. And what happened next was nothing short of miraculous, really. Once we'd redesigned the agency and started implementing the new blueprint, we won 4 major clients in 1 year. Growth took off. We built a senior leadership team. We won Agency of the Year, and we went past the 10 million mark, and I was able to sell to the Ogilvy Group. And this is what I remember most. The final years before I sold to Ogilvy were so much fun. I mean, I had a brilliant team. We knew where we were going. I wasn't carrying the whole business anymore. We were winning great clients and building something genuinely valuable. And that's the agency I want you to build. I then built another business. This time it was a technology-enabled pet care company. Yeah, a big shift from agency world for a moment there. We grew that to more than 200 carers and sold that one too. Since then, I've been working for over a decade now, mentoring growth businesses and agency consultancy owners. And there's one thing that I now know for sure, and it's this. A business stops growing because it reaches the limit of what its founder knows how to do. Does that make sense to you? So here's the thing I really want you to hear, because I've seen it happen over and over again. If it feels hard right now, it's not your fault. You've simply reached the limit of the agency you currently know how to build. You already know how to build Agency 1.0. You've proved that. You're running it. But you may not yet know how to design Agency 2.0, especially when the market itself is changing underneath us. And that's a very different problem. The good news is that amazing things are still possible in this. Tim started a small digital agency and did my very first group program over 12 years ago now, which is aging me a bit. Today, that business has scaled past $100 million in client billings. And when I asked him recently what he puts that success down to, he described one thing as their great unlock. I'll come back to that idea in a moment. Daniel started working with us 2 years ago. He's achieved 10 times revenue growth in those 2 years. Now, those are exceptional results, both Tim and Daniel. And I'm not suggesting that everybody is going to get results quite like that. But these guys are not unicorns. They just stopped trying to fix Agency 1.0 and redesigned Agency 2.0 instead. Is that making sense to you? And this is what I mean by a blueprint. Your Agency 2.0 needs a clear vision of what you're actually building. It needs a focused niche, an ideal client, unique IP that differentiates you, repeatable sales, systems for growing and recurring revenue, the right structure, and a team that can increasingly manage without you. This is a model that remains relevant and scalable in an AI-enabled world. But you don't need to master all of it today. You need to see how a design that fits it all together in the first place. And there's some more good news. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Redesigning doesn't mean throwing everything away. In fact, the most valuable part of Agency 2.0 is usually hiding inside Agency 1.0. The expertise, the knowledge, the things your clients love best about you. We don't reinvent those. We uncover them and build around them. A great example is Sanket and Ekaterina. When I met Sanket, the word he kept using was tired. He said everything felt hard. They came through the Agency 2.0 design process with us, and in 12 weeks they closed 1.4 million in business. That was roughly their entire previous year's revenue. And listen to what changed. He said his communication and outreach strategy completely changed. He started thinking differently about IP, about the value of their offers, and moved the minimum size of relationship they were targeting dramatically upwards. Same agency, same expertise, completely different positioning and ambition. And the point isn't that you need to become Sanket or Tim or Daniel. This isn't reserved for some special type of agency. Anyone can do it. When I met Lindsay, she'd lost major clients and was seriously thinking about walking away. She told me the only way she could see to grow was to work harder, and she was already exhausted. I said to her, what if there's a way to grow without working harder? And she said, right, I'm in. Within 6 months, she doubled her revenue, hired 2 A players, and in her words, got her mojo back. Daryl had already built a successful architecture practice had been going for over 10 years. But growth had stalled, and the 3 partners were still heavily involved in delivery. And they did think that their regional geography was a really big constraint for them. When I asked for their organisational chart, this is what they sent me. They called it the frying pan structure. Funny, except everybody in the pan was getting burnt. Fast forward 2 years, they're now operating in 5 regions. That picture there is them opening their 5th office. Daryl is fully in the CEO role. They've had their biggest revenue and profit year ever, while their competitors in the sector are laying people off. So the external market didn't change for them. They changed their design. And one of the biggest unlocks in this whole process is the IP engine, your unique brand of expertise matched to the right ideal client. The thing you've probably already been doing exceptionally well, but haven't yet packaged and positioned in a way that makes you the obvious choice. And this is particularly important now because every agency has access to the same tools. Clients aren't asking, can you write content? Can you design me an ad? They're asking, why would I choose you? And if your answer sounds broadly the same as everyone else, there's a problem, right? Tony was struggling to win proposals against bigger agencies, much like I had been. While he was still working through the Agency 2.0 blueprint with us, he completed the IP work and changed the way they presented their expertise. And within weeks, they'd won a £283,000 contract with a major global company. And he later told me that that client came back and turned it into a recurring revenue contract. Jenny and Brian were in an even tougher position when I met them. They were considering remortgaging their home to make payroll. They redesigned their offer, went back to prospects who had already said no, and within weeks won the biggest recurring revenue client they'd ever had. Jenny, when I spoke to her, called it a complete game changer. And here's what I want you to notice, that none of these businesses became AI agencies. None of them just worked harder. None of them threw everything away. They redesigned around what they were already brilliant at. And that's the opportunity. So this is the bit I really want you to get. You don't need to become a completely different agency. You don't need to suddenly become an AI agency. You don't need to throw everything away that you've built. The most valuable part of your Agency 2.0 is already there. It's in your expertise, your experience, the things you do better than anyone else. We just have to find it, sharpen it, and redesign the agency around it. You see, all of the people that I've shown you so far had one thing in common. They all took action. Because this is the part that's very easy to underestimate. The gap compounds. A small strategic change you make now can become a huge advantage 3 to 5 years from now. And of course, doing nothing compounds too. So every year you wait, the gap between the agency you're running and the agency the market now rewards becomes harder to close. 5 years sounds like a long time, right? But it's only 260 weeks and they go frighteningly quickly. You know how fast time flies by. So being too busy to seriously stop and build the right plan for your future, pretending it will all be all right, isn't a strategy. And neither is continuing to do the same thing and hoping the market will eventually get easier, because it probably won't. So how do we help agency owners build Agency 2.0? Good question. Well, firstly, we get you out of the trees. When you're inside your own agency every day, you're too close. You're dealing with clients, staff, cash flow, delivery, and all of today's emergencies. You can't see the whole landscape. So outside perspective gives you altitude. You can see where you are, where you're trying to get to, and the route between the two. And that clarity is enormously powerful. And increasingly, Agency 2.0 isn't just me. I mean, there is me, of course, and I have built a 10 million agency and sold it to Ogilvy, as I said earlier. But there's also Phil, who's built a $16 million agency to 100 people and led it through a successful merger and exit. And there's Livia, who's an extremely experienced ex-agency CEO of big globals like Saatchi's and Ogilvy. She's also run a small independent. So between us, there's a huge amount of real-world experience of building leading agencies at the level you're trying to get to. So it's not just theory, it's a proven framework combined with people who've actually been there and done it. And we've put all of that experience into a very simple process for helping you build yours. We take you through 3 phases. Firstly, we design your Agency 2.0. We find your IP engine. We design the blueprint. We translate it into a 90-day plan. Then we activate it. We implement it with mentoring and accountability. And we work with you to be an amazing CEO. So you've got caring, experienced ex-founders working with you to make it happen faster. And every 8 weeks, we take just 10 agency owners into the new Agency 2.0 build. And together, we design your Agency 2.0 blueprint. It doesn't require you disappearing from your agency for 6 months. You need around 2 to 3 focused hours a week. The point is not to give you more work. It's to make sure you're finally working on the things that genuinely change the future of the business. And within 8 weeks, you'll have something that you don't have now. A new future-proofed plan, clarity about where you're going, confidence, and a pathway to faster, easier growth. And by this time next year, you'll have gotten unstuck, you'll have won bigger clients, you'll have improved the quality of your portfolio, you'll have an A-player team in place, and you'll be more of a CEO and less in the weeds. Going alone is hard and slow. Going together is fast and fun. But Laura, I'm too busy. I've got school holidays. So much is going on. Cash flow's tight. Now's not a good time. I've heard all of them. Like Daniel. Daniel told me exactly the same thing. He wanted to spend time fixing his website before working on the agency. When he eventually joined and did his Agency 2.0 design with us 12 months later, he completed the IP work and said to me, Laura, I've just wasted 12 months, because he knew that once he knew what the Agency 2.0 looked like, everything he was planning to do before that changed. And that's the danger of hacking away at today's problems. You know, the tactical things like, I need a new website, rather than stopping and looking at where the landscape is going. Because the landscape isn't going to change. AI is not going to wait, your competitors are not going to wait, and your clients certainly won't wait. And if running Agency 1.0 is already taking a toll on your health and your energy, then your mental health won't wait either. The agencies that redesign first have the opportunity to become the obvious choice. Not because they're necessarily better at every service, but because they're clearer about how and where they create extraordinary value. So I want to make the first step very easy for you. I'm not asking you to decide in this video whether you should join Agency 2.0. I'm asking you to find out what your Agency 2.0 might actually look like. Because you're here at the beginning of this curve right now, and you've got choices. A year from now, you'll either have spent that year deliberately building Agency 2.0, or you'll have spent another year running Agency 1.0. Either way, the clock runs, right? So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, Laura, I get it. I probably do need to build Agency 2.0, but where on earth do I start? I've made the next step really easy. If you're recognizing your agency and what I've been talking about, the next step is to book an Agency 2.0 assessment with me. I personally make 5 of these appointments available each week, and I'll explain exactly what we do when we meet. This assessment is really an opportunity for us to look at your agency rather than talk in vague generalities. We'll look at where you are now, where you want the agency to go, and which of those 3 fundamental problems I talked about is getting in the way. I'll help you identify where I think the biggest opportunity is for you right now and what the priorities are for designing your Agency 2.0. So if you've been running an agency for a while or a consultancy, you've built something successful, but you're feeling stuck, under pressure, or simply just not crystal clear about what the next version needs to look like, I encourage you to book one. I only make 5 of these appointments available every week because I do them personally. And just to be completely transparent, this isn't a disguised free coaching call. If, having looked at your agency, I think you'll be a good fit for the Agency 2.0 program, I'll explain how we can help you build it. As I said before, we only take 10 agencies into each Agency 2.0 build every 8 weeks. So if you're interested in joining the next one, we can talk about that too. But equally, if I don't think we're right for you, I'll tell you that too. Either way, you'll leave with a much clearer idea of what needs to change and where to start. So if this little training here has made you realize that you don't want to spend another 6 or 12 months trying to fix Agency 1.0, click below and book one of those 5 appointments this week. Come and show me what you've built, and let's work out what you need to build next. And thanks so much for staying to the end of this recording. That says a lot about you and your interest and passion for growing your agency to the next stage. So I hope to see you on a call, and maybe we'll talk about your Agency 2.0 with joining us sometime in the future. Bye for now.